Dr. Carlo Blanco, you are a phenomenal example that there are really good, decent, kind-hearted people on the internet. And the reason I say that is because you found me on Instagram through my content, and we connected and we had a chat, and I was like pleasantly surprised to get to know you better and learn more about who you are. And yeah, I was like, your joy is so infectious, Carlo, and no doubt it's one of the reasons it's made you such a phenomenal leader. And the space that you hold is very, very compassionate and non-judgmental, which, no doubt has served you as a psychologist and an executive advisor and the founder of Blanco and Blanco Psychology and Best Life Clinic, joining us from San Juan, Puerto Rico. For those who don't know as well, Dr. Carlo Blanco works privately with CEOs, with founders, senior executives to eliminate anxiety, to restore mental clarity, and break out of chronic alert mode, which I can definitely relate to, a big part of my journey. And yeah, Dr. Carlo Blanco has his own podcast, the Private Boardroom. He's got over 12 years of experience as a clinical director across psychology, life coaching, hypnosis. And that's why I'm really excited for this conversation, because you've had a journey that I'm sure you'll take us on, Blanco, from the clinical side to the commercial side. Yeah, what a gift to give your clients. I read online, a lot of your clients report better sleep and reduced mental noise and a calm, sharp mind, which I think, this world needs more now than ever. So thank you so much for being here, Carla. I appreciate you
Well,
sharing your time
thank
with
you
us.
for having me, and I should definitely record this intro and play it every morning. When I woke up, maybe questioning about life, if there are nice people out there too, which we are mirror, what you're saying about me is what I feel about you as well. So definitely going to record this and play it every morning to get myself up and positive and know that there are good people, as you said, out there on the internet, and that definitely the internet can be put to a good use. And thank you for having me here. And let's have a great conversation, honest, deep, and provide value to everyone that's going to listen and watch this podcast.
Love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Starting your day off with something like that. Yeah, I think a good place for us to start today, Carlo, since you work with some of the most successful leaders on the planet, CEOs, founders, executives who are operating at the highest level, and what you keep finding beneath all of that success and performance is anxiety and chronic stress and a busy racing mind that can't switch off, maybe a body that's been stuck in survival mode or running on high alert for years, if not decades. What do you see, or what is it about achieving at that level that almost seems to guarantee that kind of suffering and tension on the inside?
That's a great question, David. The first thing that I notice is that successful people that are into these roles, and sometimes, or actually most of the time, they are in executive roles, they are all to themselves. So they hide that pain within themselves. They don't go out looking for any assistance or help. And what they get to do is they self-medicate. Many of them also use their status, use the acquired money to go on expensive trips, buying everything they can, thinking that when they buy more and do more, that odd feeling, which later on we discover it's anxiety, it's leading under pressure, gets to be a problem. And the first thing that I find is that because they're all to themselves, they miss on diagnosing what's really going on with them. So instead of them saying, okay, I'm going through, let's say, anxiety, and I need to visit a professional and not self-medicate and look for a solution that works for me, what they wrongly do is that they carry this pain, this pressure that you get to see again. Initially, they look for everything else that they can find. They travel more, they look for refuge in alcohol, sometimes with friends that they think are going to be supportive, when in reality, they're relationships that pose threat to them. Many of them, I also noticed that run into problems in their family. They stop spending time with their family. Many of them get to even to through divorce when the origin or the main problem is leading under pressure, not knowing that that's the problem that they're going through, and ultimately having the right diagnosis where they can see, oh, so medically, I'm going through anxiety. So first of all, this is nothing strange. I'm not going crazy. There is nothing to be ashamed of, because also on top of the pressure that they get to feel, and not knowing what's really going on with them, knowing that they can't sleep, knowing, for example, I have male clients that come to me and say, I can't perform sexually with my partner. Things like that, that you think, okay, that's a sexual issue, but that has its roots on anxiety, on a medical and psychological problem. So the first thing that I notice is just that the lack of services to successful leaders, and they're all to themselves, and they really don't know what to do, and they think that what they are going through is normal, or that is so odd that they need to be shameful and they can't relate what they're going through to anybody. So I imagine how it is when you get to feel that way and then you have to hide it. So it's shame. It's the fact that you have to hide that. And then how you get to feel when you hide that, it's the pain of you still have to perform at that A+ level. You have your team that relies on you, and you have to have a happy face, pretend everything is right, when inside you are breaking down. And worst of all, once again, is not knowing what's going on with you. Because once you know what's going on with you, the first thing that you have is clarity. And that clarity is traduced or translated to control. And we all know that when we feel in control, what happens? Our nervous system relaxes, you have mental clarity, and you can move forward. And you can start looking for a solution. So that's basically the process, the general process that I find on everyone going through this situation. And I can tell you that maybe if I use the word anxiety, some people won't define themselves or relate to that word, but when I number or mention each possible symptom, I would tell you that about 80 to 85% of those CEOs, of those executives, very important, successful executives, because we tend to think, oh, if they're going through anxiety or under pressure, we think of average executives only. No, I'm talking about successful executives that are having success, monetary success, that their business is doing well, but internally they are collapsing. And one thing that I want to introduce at this point, I know I've been talking for a little bit, but since I set up this scenario, I want to say that the most important thing is that success that you've achieved, if you don't deal with that mental breakdown, that's not going to be permanent, and you're going to lose it all. And one thing that people, and I see it, David, over and over, is the focus on hiring a better team, on the focus on the best methodology, the focus on saving time, the focus of using the AI to serve me well. All of that is great. But if you are not working on your main operation center, which is your mind, which controls your body, your emotions, everything in 1-2 years is going to collapse. So all in all, that's the case that I see, and that's the prognosis that I see if you don't take action. And I would say the biggest challenge is when you are successful, sometimes it's hard to look at yourself and do a personal analysis and say, okay, you know what? I'm having these issues. Maybe I'm going into excessive alcohol consumption. Maybe it's hard for me to say my marriage is breaking. Maybe it's hard to say I don't know how to lead. I know how to make money, but I'm not being a good CEO. Whatever that may be. Because as a successful professional, you are trained to believe you are the best, you are perfect. And then we have to close those doors and we can show the world how vulnerable we are or the things that we are lacking. So it's interesting how, for those people that get to be on a successful role, the challenge often is that that's not how they feel about themselves. And they feel like they don't have the opportunity like any other person to say, hey, I'm having this issue. Help me.
Thank you so much, Carlo. Yeah, that's a very helpful breakdown of the different layers that are going on mentally and emotionally. Because you're right, what I'm hearing throughout all of that is a deep sense of shame and feeling like they're somehow an outcast, or might feel embarrassed or humiliated for admitting that something is wrong. And I want to double click on that actually, because I'm curious, why do you think that some of these, high performing CEOs or just driven people in general are the last to admit that something is wrong? Why do you feel like they find it so hard to be vulnerable with their team? If they've built a culture and an organization and they're thriving, why can't they talk to someone in their team or to their partner to admit that something is going wrong? Why do you feel that so many high performers bottle all of this up and then have to deal with the mental, emotional, physiological problems later?
David, there are multiple factors, but definitely a big factor is that successful people have been programmed that if they're to be successful, it's the same as having everything resolved. It's the same as being perfect, which is a total fallacy. So given that when you get to that role, you are taught that to be a leader means that you're powerful, but people understand by being powerful that you have everything solved, that you cannot be vulnerable, that you can't have anxiety, that you can have self-doubts, that you may not have all the answers. And because people are overstimulated to always say, you are successful, you have it, you are you are in control, you are under control, and erroneously think that in order to keep the status quo of I'm the leader, I cannot be vulnerable or I cannot be imperfect. So that's one of the things. Another factor is that in our society, and I see it even though you're in Australia, I'm in Puerto Rico, US, and I see it in other countries as well. And I see it a lot in men also. Men are taught we don't cry. We are taught also as men to focus on things that are rational, math, building a business, talking about numbers, as opposed to talking about feelings. For example, if you go to a party and you have CEOs, professionals, wife, husbands, you'll get into the conversation and you'll see that what women talk is quite different to what men talk. Men talk numbers, men talk sports. And yes, that's also because there's a natural interest on that, but that's also topics that we bring to just put a face and not have to really connect. So that's another factor also. And that's just something, a construct that I get to see that happens in different cultures and happen to a lot of men. So yes, if you're a man in this position, it's even harder for you. And I was able to validate it in the sense that within the last 20 years, I see a good trend of now executives, men executives, CEOs, etc., are open to this emotional work. But back 20 years, 10 years ago, I would say even, you would see more women CEO doing this internal work. And that's why we get to see the rise of many successful women in leadership roles, because they have everything that men have. They know how to approach the system. They've learned how men do it, but they also have that sixth sense that they've gained through just being brought up as women. However,
Yeah.
that is not to say that men are at a disadvantage, because women leaders also have other challenges that are posed to them, like women are not supposed to interrupt, women are not supposed to disrupt the system, women are not supposed to be confrontational, because if they are, or if they go into a meeting and they are just, let's say, very clear and direct about what they say, they are called a BITH. So as you see, there are benefits and cons of either just simply being a man leader or being a female leader.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the reality and the systemic issues that we've seen for so many years and decades. And something that you mentioned before that I think could be interesting to explore. You talked about powerful, and it's the same in Australia. I think there is a lot of conditioning and programming around power being associated with external, superficial trappings of success. The car, the paycheck, the house, whatever, the material things. What do you believe true power looks like?
Great question, David. That is power. Everything you mentioned is power that allows you to function in society. And let's not pretend that that's not important. If you are not making your monthly payments, so you can't go to your dentist, take care of a tooth, if you can't afford your mortgage, if you can't afford health insurance, etc., we cannot pretend that you can be in a position of leading or being stable or comfortable. So that financial stability is indeed important. However, that's not what gives you power. You know what I find over and over that truly gives you the feeling of being in control and in power, and that's the definition of power to me. It's when you have a calm, clear mind, knowing that you may undergo challenges. As a matter of fact, life is about challenges, but you are certain that whatever is thrown your way, you have the tools, emotional, physical, spiritual, to handle whatever situation comes along. And you would say, David, so how does that look like? I would say having a mental programming that works for you. And what do I mean by mental programming? The thoughts that you get to have on repeat, because that's exactly how our mind functions, just like listening to a music station. You'll notice that we have the same tape, CD, MP3, whatever we want to call it, of thoughts repeating every day. And if you pay attention to your thoughts, you'll get to see if you are really in a position where you have inner power. And where do you see that? Are my thoughts showing me? Am I abundant? Do I have money? Do I trust the world? Do I trust myself? Do I like myself? What do I think of myself as a professional? Do I feel loved by my partner, by my family, and so on? So when you get to listen to that conversation, and there's this exercise that I recommend to my clients, we tend to do it in the initial phase of whatever work, internal work we're doing, and is to pay attention and jot down what are those repetitive thoughts that you have over and over. And when you do, after I would say 7 days maximum, but usually you can do it in 3 days, you can print a page or an avatar of who you are, not based on your capacity, but based on what you're thinking, that in the end becomes who you are. Because in the end, we are not what we are what we think. If I start going every day, I believe I'm prosperous, I believe I'm the best psychologist in Australia, and you repeat it every day for 7 days, believe me, that's what your mind believes. But as you know, I wish our thoughts were geared to that. But as you probably know, and you'll see with your clients as well, it's negative thoughts, questioning thoughts. Why I'm not good enough, why I'm not loved. Fear. What do I fear? And you'll see that 24/7 we are involved in thoughts revolving fear that tells us that we can't do it. So if that's the conversation that you're having, the question I ask you, Dave, are you free? And the answer is no. And what I answer now, your question is, when you are free, you are powerful. If you are not free, and that's because you're not doing that internal work, you may have the best cars, you may have the 10 million, 20 minute. I mean, I talk to people like today in the podcast I did this morning. I was recording for my private boardroom. He has $100 million worth. So basically, whatever he wants materially, he can have it. But as we were talking at one point before he did the work, he was not free. He would go to bed and have these recurring thoughts and the anxiety and everything else. That's not being powerful or being free. Granted, powerful to a certain extent. Because again, money, don't we all want it and love it? But in the end, that's not true freedom or the true definition of power, according to moi.
I love that, Carlos. So being free means, sorry, being powerful means being free of the negative, unproductive, destructive mental programming that keeps us trapped, that keeps us chasing superficial things, that keeps us stuck in loops of stress and anxiety.
Yes, but I would like to reformulate that. And I would say the following: it's about having the capacity and know how to work with your mind so that when these thoughts come up, you play with them and you transform them and you win them over. In the end, when you're doing the work and you're very advanced doing the work, you can get to a point where you don't have those thoughts or they come very rarely. And that's where I work with clients who say, okay, I want to delve into this. I want to do advanced mental programming work. And when you do that, that's what happens. But some other people may say, I don't want that intensive. And maybe what I need to do, or maybe my goal is to know when these recurring negative thoughts come, that I know how to transform them, how to work with them, and they don't limit me in my decisions. Therefore, I don't go into drinking, sexual addiction, and many other things that we get to use to manage that emptiness or that pressure, that anxiety that we feel. So it's up to you, like in any other condition. If you want to get real buff, you go to the gym, you spend more time at it. It's not a requirement to say I'm 100% clear of those negative thoughts, because I also understand that to some people, having these thoughts make them more powerful, because you get these negative thought, and you go, so I'm strong and I'm still going to do it. And if you get to do it that way, that's bingo, that's winning. So it's not about not having them, it's about whatever you choose. Either know how to manage it so it doesn't detain me from my life and from whatever I want to achieve, or if they are at a point that I can't sleep, I'm watching a movie, I can't focus on the movie, I can't be present with my family, I can't enjoy the money that I'm making. I'm successful. Everybody thinks I should be super happy for what I have, but I'm miserable. Then it's time to do the work.
Yeah, thank you, Carlo. And, doing the work looks quite different. I've certainly been on a journey where I've tried a bunch of different modalities, and it feels like for so many years I was just coping with stress and anxiety and I was managing it. So I was able to, yeah, I guess have some tool at my disposal to regulate in the moment. but it kept on coming back. And, I was still repeating unproductive, patterns of behavior. So I was really curious about you and your work because as I understand it, you help eliminate stress at its root mechanism. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I'm going to expand a little bit. And perhaps if I share shortly, briefly, why I'm doing this. When I started doing my career, it goes through doing a master's, then you go into doing a doctorate. It takes many years, as you probably know. And through my studies, I got to a point that I developed anxiety and panic attacks. So when I started looking for a solution, medication failed, did nothing to me. Conventional psychology didn't help me either. I said, if I'm going to there at some point, that usually the solution, I believe in the divine, whatever you want to call the divine.
Well, just sorry to pause you just there. We've lost you on the microphone. It's jumped back to your webcam.
Okay, let's fix
I can
that
edit this out.
technical. Let's fix that technical element. I'm still here. Okay.
Can't hear you. It says webcam now. We can push on the webcam. It'll just seem like your quality of audio has changed. It's not, if you're
Can you
struggling
hear
to,
me though? Can you hear me
can
now?
definitely hear you. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah. The
as
quality
I,
is
as
not
I
the
was
same, but we
saying,
can go like this.
okay.
Yeah.
So I was saying, to your question, don't know where it started, so I'm just going to recap shortly. Doing my math in psychology, I developed anxiety and panic attacks. Medication didn't work. Conventional psychology did not work. Didn't find anything that would work. Anything. That's where I come into mind programming, otherwise known as hypnosis. I tried hypnosis. Obviously, I put the work, did the work. As we all know, nothing is like you just, click your fingers and then voila, there you go. And when I did the work, I got the results that I was looking for, and I fell in love. I fell in love with mind programming. And I said, this is exactly what I'm going to be doing. And that's exactly what I've done for the past 13, almost 14 years going on now. Just that eventually, as I grew on my career after the COVID situation, I decided to make some changes on my business. And then that's where I decided that I would be helping executives and CEOs work on this. The important focus on my work is not only that I work on eliminating stress, anxiety, but the most important fact is how to do it without medication. Because unfortunately, the vast majority of people think that they need to self medicate or just medicate to solve this subject. And in reality, that is not the case. Granted, some cases do require medication, but I would say about 75% of the cases do not. And when you medicate, you lose who you are as a leader. You tend to be sedated. You lose your creativity. Many of my patients have seen memory problems, have seen addiction problems where the medication, they became addicted to using that medication. You see changes in weight, you see changes on your sexual performance, and so many more. And many leaders I've seen that they don't want, and many people don't want to go the route of medication. And being that in my case, medication did not write by me, when I find that there was indeed a solution without medicating, that's the route I took. And I became sort of the mentor expert doing this. And not only because of the work that I do based on, of course, studying the subject, but when you go through that problem and you master it yourself, you truly become a sensei. You become the master because nobody can come to you and say, you can't do it. because you know what it takes and you know that if you do the work, it is done. So being in that case, it puts me in a position where I'm passionate about the work that I do. People also feel comfortable that because I have not only the book education, if you will call it that way, but also living through it and coming on the other side, they feel good. They feel okay. They feel I'm in the right hands. And that's part in great measure of the success that I have because I not only speak from education, but I speak from life experience for having done what is required. And then not only about me, but then having helped so many people in so many years. That gives you then more expertise, makes you more sure of what you're doing. And of course, when you work with so many people, you get to prove once and again what works, what not, and you refine your methodology. So I'm fortunate in that way that I've been able to help people by helping myself initially, and then to refine what I can do to help people by having the people open their hearts, their life, their misery when they get to me, and letting me go into their life and along with their work, find a solution to whatever you want to call it. I call it anxiety because I know ultimately that that's it. But again, I want to mention that people can be listening to this podcast and say, no, I don't have anxiety, or anxiety is not my problem. And when I sit down with them and we go through the symptoms, they will be the ones telling me this is anxiety. Maybe it's an advanced anxiety. Maybe I'm even having panic attacks. Where do I sign up? When do we start the work? But unfortunately, going back to our initial part of the conversation, because they're not aware, because they don't have the right information, they don't even know that they have it. And my question to you, David, is, and this is an open question, not to you, but to you and the audience is, if you don't even know what you have, how do you want to be healed? It's the same as a cancer. If you don't even know that you have a tumor cells growing, how do you even know you have a cancer? Same thing. So that's
Thank you
why
for
it's
sharing.
so important for spaces like my podcast, and that's why it's called the private boardroom, because it's a private boardroom. So you're thinking, okay, I'm in a safe and private space, but those that have the guts of being in that space, they are open up, they're vulnerable, and then other people get to see, wow, look at David, what he said, I connect with that. Then they look at themselves, and then if they're ready, they take the next step. And the same way that I'm doing it in my podcast is the same that I see a similarity with the work that you do, with being vulnerable with your audience. Same way that I see the use of the word liberated and liberation, liberated as the name of your podcast. Because liberated is because, yes, you resolve whatever was holding you, but liberated to me also means being able to speak freely, like we're doing. I'm sharing that, I suffer from anxiety and panic attacks while I was doing my master's. You mentioned in all your publications family situations, your situation with alcohol, your anxiety, and that's liberation. And when some people show up their face, and the more people keep showing their faces, maybe somebody sees this conversation in the USA and they ask us for another podcast, or they reshare this information, and that's how we grow. And then that wakes up other people that need to hear this message and say, hey, this is what I just needed.
That's beautiful. I love your work, Carlo. You know, the change that you're creating in your community and in your practice and with your clients uh starts with you, and I can see how devoted you've been to addressing those patterns and those panic attacks. And I've had my fair share as well, and I know how confronting and scary and overwhelming they can be. It's a credit to you because there's so many people who can go through a course or an education and then go out and start teaching and helping, but if they're not coming from an embodied place, if they haven't done their own work, then it's not going to have the same level of impact. Clients may not be able to fully relate to them. So it's such a gift, to share with your clients, Carlo.
As a
And
matter of
yeah,
fact, oh, I'm sorry I didn't. Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you and share
yeah,
this with
go
you.
for
I
it.
tell you that part of my healing was when this became about serving others, and when I found gratitude in having gone through hell about a year when I had this situation, when I used what happened to me to serve others. And now I see it as a privilege, as an advantage, as a growth tool. And now I couldn't have wished any other gift to myself. Now, if you asked me back then, I would tell you I wish this unto nobody. So it's great that we're saying this, because in the same fashion that I'm sharing this transformation, and the same way that I share it, like how something could be so negative, and now I see it as a blessing. If you are listening to this podcast, if you're watching this podcast, know that if you're going through this, you can also be that person that say, I'm going through hell. This could be a blessing to me. I want our audience to know that in the same fashion that I did it, if you commit your resources, your time, you make this a priority, you can also do it. And I know, David, someone, whoever it is, that's listening to this kind of conversations or podcasts, has the ability to work on himself, is clearly interested in self help or self development, willing or open to make changes in his or her life. So, if that's the case, if this resonates, great. Maybe, as I also share sometimes, maybe this is not intended for you, but maybe you're listening to this and you go, oh, this, my partner needs to hear this. My partner needs to work with Dr. Carlo. My partner needs to meet David. That happens also. But the thing is to get this message across.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, the vulnerability is so important. I believe that's fundamental to how we connect with others, especially on a deep level. So yeah, thank you for that, Carlo. And something that you said that I really resonate with as well is just around your own journey with self development and healing and doing your own inner work and going through psychology and medication. And I've done therapy and been on antidepressants and stuff like that. Although, when I was on medication, there were a lot of adverse effects. I didn't really respond well to it. In therapy, it was very helpful from the perspective of giving me an awareness of what I was going through. So going from unconsciously executing unproductive patterns of thinking and behavior to just becoming aware of them. It didn't necessarily shift it. There were other modalities that helped me. So I'd love to hear from your experience, your own journey. It sounds like hypnosis obviously has been a big part of it as well. But why you think that most conventional approaches like therapy or medication, mindfulness, or like productivity hacks only scratch the surface? Why is that the case?
Great question. Based on my own situation, based on obviously the clinical work that I've done, what I've studied through the years, working through here's what I find. And this is not to throw stones at anything, because as long as you start doing something, that's a start. And maybe what works for me doesn't work for you, or maybe it's your own combination. It's like going to a buffet and you pick and choose whatever works for you, right? However, what I've seen is that when you work with your conscious mind, that's what we do in hypnosis, that's what we do in mental reprogramming, it's where you get permanent, sustainable, quick changes. When you're in therapy, you only stay at the surface, talking perhaps about the problem. You learn about tools. You definitely ventilate what hurts you. So, yes, there's a lot of improvement, and that's a lot of help. However, when we're dealing with anxiety and these patterns of thinking, going back to what I said earlier, that's literally a programming that we have. And the only way to change that diskette, that cassette, that MP3, that programming that we acquired from the early years, what we learn from parents, what we learn at school, what we tell each other, ourselves, I must say, how we interpret wrongly events that happen in our life. Oh, she broke up with me, so that's I'm not deserving of a partner. And there starts a lot of things. Or my dad abandoned me. Hey, my dad abandoned me because he was an alcoholic, had nothing to do with me. But I end up thinking my dad abandoned me because I'm not worthy of love. Then the self-esteem issues that I carry. Then I can't relate to a partner. And boom, boom. And then all the stories that we make to ourselves. The only way that we can work on them efficiently, permanently, and change that script is through going and working with your mind programming through hypnosis. Doing the verbal work helps. Medication, a lot of people come, oh, I'm having issues, and they go and medicate. Medication is indeed needed sometimes. When is it needed? When you're really in a crisis mode. We use it to stabilize, bring ourselves down, whatever symptoms of anxiety that we're experiencing. So, yes, it's helpful. But even major studies say that if you use medication, in order for it to work, you need to integrate therapy. And even though that's an improvement. It's nothing like what I've experienced with myself and my clients when I see them go through the process of working with their minds. Remember that what are you doing? You're reprogramming your mind. You're telling your mind what you want to think. If I'm telling my mind to think I'm successful, I'm powerful, right? Some of the things that we taught. You say, I'm powerful. And that's why you educate your internal mind to think. What happens? What you think, it's how you act. And how you act, that's the world that you create. So when you change that pattern of thinking internally through self hypnosis, through self or whatever kind of hypnosis you decide to go into, you see a real change. So again, it's not to say therapy doesn't work, medication doesn't work. It's important to see what are you going through to determine the best plan of action. But what I do want to say, and I'm okay with saying this is my perspective, is that out of all the options out there, hypnosis is the best vehicle. However, I'm the first one to say if to that you can add, for example, working out, I don't know, whatever else that you have, nutrition, have a healthy gut, healthy mind. So if you have that, by all means, what is it going to do? Speed up your gains, speed up your healing process. So yes, all of that is valid. All of that is valid. So I would definitely say it's important that you don't do a general approach, but rather a personal approach to deal exactly when you deal exactly with what you need to heal. That's the only way that you can really have successful cure. Otherwise, you are even spending energy treating other things or thinking I need to do this, and that's not even where you need to spend your energy, your money, whether it's your money or your time or energy in healing.
For sure.
And one thing I'd like to say, David, is I see so many successful, and I see this happening men, successful men making big money, and they forget about themselves. And when you put yourself in that position, it's like, I'm creating this empire. To what and for what? If in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, it's going to collapse. How is it going to collapse? Maybe for you, it's you get you didn't get the cancer because you got it from the stress, anxiety, panic attacks. You say, I'm doing wonderfully. And then I look at the person, 100 pounds overweight. What does it tell you if someone has 100 pounds overweight? Yearly. People that get to me, oh yeah, I got a divorce last year. I have all this money, but now I'm divorced. So now I'm all alone at home. Happen. So that's the price when you don't do anything. Because people think, oh, no, I won't go. I won't do any mental work because, that's not for me. That's for crazy people. Okay, if that's what you think, that's the old paradigm. You're going to pay the price. Again, how do I pay the price? Because I see it, this that I'm bringing is not things that I'm making up. It's real cases. People that come to me, I
Mm,
lost all my hair. I gained the weight. I can't sleep. Sexual addiction problems, and the list doesn't end. And it's all
mm.
the result of not doing the internal work. But they're willing and open to spend thousands to build their empire. I'm not against that. That's great. But how about realizing that the first thing you need to work on is yourself, your mental frame, then do everything else that you're doing as well. And then you're going to have true wealth. You're going to have to be successful and maintain it and be, to use your podcast's name, be truly liberated.
That's beautiful. Well, that's a really good segue, actually, because I'd love to hear from you, Carlo. And I mean, you're already preaching to the converted, but I think it's very important knowledge to share and can't be repeated enough, really. This whole idea of performance or output or impact or achievement is an effect. It's an effect of the root cause, is a byproduct of a mental and emotional state that serves you, that is working for you, not against you. So yeah, I do want to hear from you, and you did touch a bit on it earlier, but what does being liberated actually mean to you? What does that look like, Carla?
I would say being liberated means being free to be who you are. And for me, it is to be able to show up vulnerable, say I'm perfectly imperfect, say that sometimes I get afraid, say that I feel fear, that I feel or get anxious, but also saying that I have the power to deal with all of that. And none of it detains me from being whatever I want to be when I'm as the doctor, when I'm acting as the doctor, or when I'm in my personal life. And that's to be truly liberated to me. Be who you really are, show up how you are, validate yourself, and know that everything that comes, and I know that sometimes what we get is not what we want, I will somehow get to the other side. And that is a feeling that I'm quite experiencing quite often, and I do want to say that that comes with age, but not only with age. That comes with age and when you've done the internal work. Because I've seen men my age and older than me, and I see that they have not acquired that or they don't feel like that. Before, I used to think that maturity or growing in age, you pass your 30s and you go into your 40s, that it was a byproduct, that you were granted that feeling of being liberated. No, my dears, no, my dears. If you use your time wisely and do the work, then you can get to those maturity. You're still young, but more mature years enjoying that. But if not, I can see a person 50, 60, 70. I even seen them in practice really anxious, really not being liberated.
Mm.
And it's sad to see that you've gone your life without being or feeling liberated. And another thing, David, we tend to think that we are going to be liberated by someone else. That's a fallacy. Nobody is going to liberate you. Your parents may have the best intentions, your wife, your husband, your kids, the preacher at church, coaches that you get, but only you can do the work. Because I can even sit down with you and I'm open and I'm going to help you, but you don't do the work, nothing is done. So you
Mm.
get liberated. You get to say, if I want to get liberated, if that's important to me, you get to say or choose how I'm going to do it, and it's all about you. The good thing is the power is within you. So if anybody that's listening to this is wondering, again, this resonates, but maybe this is not for me. This is because Dr. Carlo, you know, he had these experiences and that's why he does it, or David. No, this can be done by anyone. But yes, you have to put in the work. This is no miracle. I have to say that.
I really like that point about, not outsourcing liberation to anyone else. And I think when you get to a place where you realize that no one is coming to save you, that no external entity or government or mom or dad or partner, and you realize, you're the only person who can guide you out of the place that you're in, then I believe you start walking the path to liberation. And I'm, by no means fully liberated. I'm still walking it each and every day. But yeah, I think you summed it up really well, Carlo. So
And
thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
when people are willing to do that change, when the cost of the pain that they're going through is so much that it becomes unbearable, that to do the work or to get uncomfortable to get to the other side makes sense. So again, to our audience, if you're feeling pushed, if you're suffering, you are in pain, maybe the blessing is that's the indication that you're being pushed to do the work. And that's how I see it. I haven't met anybody, and I don't think that's your case. It certainly wasn't mine. When I grow the most is when I'm being pinched or when I'm being placed in a difficult position. Do we want to feel like that all the time? Hell no. But what I find over and over is that any time and every time that I've been put in that position, I get to grow. I don't want to be in
Gift,
constant growth, but give me a little growth and change it a little bit. Give me some fun, and then we go into some growth.
growth in small doses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it can be 24/7. However, one thing that happens is if you've neglected growing for many years, then when that growth stage comes, because you've ignored the work for so long, then that growing can be very painful because it's been many things that you neglected. Is to put it simply, it's the same. If I only gain 10 or 20 pounds, it's going to be easier to lose the 10 or 20 pounds versus I gain 100 pounds. I lost muscle. My body chemistry is wrong. Now I have to take medication. So you need to do more work to get back to our normal level. So having said that, also the lesson is if this resonates, if you want to work with yourself, the sooner, and that's something that I find also real, the sooner the better. Because the sooner you do the work, the closer you are and the easier it is to get to point A, or being, if we want to use that phrase, being liberated or being free of anxiety or whatever we want to place as the goal. The longer, also, David, I must share from a medical perspective, just like in any condition, the longer you wait to take action, the stronger the symptoms, the stronger the pain, the more difficult it is to revert patterns. And that's 100% true. Why do I say it? Because I find people also say, oh, yes, I have to deal with this. Oh, but I listen to Dr. Carlo and to David, and they're right, and I need to do this. Wow, I just feel like some anxiety coming up. Well, I just felt a little nervous by listening to them. I'm going to do it later. And it's common to us as humans to say, I don't want to deal with that. But if in that point you make that decision of, okay, I will do it, but I'm going to prioritize something else, you're putting yourself at a big disadvantage because this, whatever it is just going to get worse and worse and worse if not acted on.
Well said, Carlo. Well said. Yeah, I think that point about, yeah, when the pain that you're in outweighs the pain of changing, then you're ready to take action. And if people do want to take action, where should they connect with you, Carlo? Where should we guide them to?
Great question. One thing I want to say, David, is that I cleared my socials from an intermediary, meaning that when people connect with me in socials, it's really me. Why did I do that? Because I want to connect one on one with the person and really do a short assessment and see if we are a good fit. So, in the beginning, yes, it's more time for me to make that attempt to connect with you. But by the same token, I believe that person deserves the respect from me from getting my connection, getting to speak with me from that initial contact. So, having said that, the best way to connect with me is through socials. In Instagram, I'm listed as Dr. Carlo Blanco. It's DR. Also, you can connect with me through my podcast, The Private Boardroom, which now is anywhere and everywhere where you listen to your podcast. That way, you can listen to my podcast. Maybe you get to feel more comfortable before scheduling a time with me. And the process would be, there's a link that you make this connection call with me, and I will give you the details of how we'll conduct the session, and we'll get to develop your own personal plan. So from that first session, you start resolving your life. And again, yes, I speak about anxiety, but anxiety could mean living under pressure and could mean many things. Okay. So it's not about, oh, I don't feel like I have anxiety, but I do feel these other things. That other thing or other things is what I'm referring to as anxiety as well.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, that's I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I definitely encourage everyone to reach out, especially if you're feeling that pull, like, all of the things that Carlo vulnerably shared from his own experience and, navigating the pressures of leadership and, slipping into all kinds of different addictions and attachments. So if that speaks to you, I definitely encourage you to reach out and if this episode resonated with you as well and you know someone who might be in that position of leadership and struggling internally, send it their way. It could be the very thing that they need to hear today. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, Carlo. Lots of
Thank
love.
you for the invitation. Thank you.